Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, it is Hotel Fiction. I am a huge Hotel Fiction fan. I always have to edit out the gushing at the beginning of podcasts. I'm a big fan of Hotel Fiction. Hotel Fiction is Jay Long and Jessica Thompson from Athens, Georgia. Well, they went to school at University of Georgia. Our daughter went there and still lives in Athens. And obviously, few cities have a richer music scene than Athens. Of course, besides the big cities. But where do we begin? REM, B-52s, Widespread Panic, Drive-By Truckers of Montreal, Kishibashi, Pylon. The list goes, Vic Chestnut, the list goes on and on. I forgot how I found out about Hotel Fiction, but I've been following them since their debut, and I'm a big fan. And it was great to have Jade and Jessica on the pod. Their new album is called Staring at the Sun. We talked about the impact, not how being around Athens makes them more prolific, but specifically the parks around Athens, being outside. And this was amazing that they said that the top of a parking deck is a great place to write songs. You'll have to find out why. And hey, nothing like songwriting with wine and brownies. That's a great ritual. Can't really complain about that. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Hotel Fiction. Please check them out. They are from Athens. They're on tour. If they come to your city, go. I'm certainly going to go. I can't wait to see them live. I have not. But anyway, new album is called Staring at the Sun. Here's Jade Long and Jessica Thompson of Hotel Fiction. Let's start with this first, and Jess, we'll start with you. Is it important for you to create in some fashion every day, whether it's writing, songwriting, or journal writing, or anything, or do you take the stance that forcing things can really make things stale and derivative?
That's such a great question. I think in my ideal world, it's really important to me to create something every day. I don't know if you've ever read the book The Artist's Way, but I do like the morning pages a lot. Some months I'm consistent every single day for months, and then of course I fall off and I'm doing it like a couple times a week. But I was kind of thinking about this the other day, and I made the observation that when I wake up, I have this like energy that I sometimes avoid, which is like to create something. And the longer the day goes on, that I'm not tapping into that in some way. And it really doesn't have to be structured songwriting or anything, just like writing someone a letter or journaling morning pages or even like sewing something. I'll get like more and more anxious throughout the day. And there's kind of nothing like the feeling of not only during when you make something, but also when you have made something and how that feels. And just like, I don't know if it's just getting the energy of the day out into something or what it is, but I feel like as the day goes on, I feel that pressure kind of build, and sometimes I'll ignore it all day, but in the ideal world, I'm kind of continuing to release it.
So have the morning pages, when did you learn? I've heard that many times from artists that do the morning pages. So
Yeah.
is that separate from songwriting, or do you find that sometimes those things turn into song ideas?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like there's a lot of sort of structured rules about morning pages, and I sort of choose to follow some of them and choose to not. One of them is that it should be 3 pages of, like, entirely free flowing, like, subconscious thought, essentially, that you're not filtering anything, you're putting it all out on the page. It could be drawing a giant picture of a horse, or it could be, like, um I mean, even every now and then I'll be like, "Oh, here's all the things I need to do today," and it turns into a list of that, or here's what I'm stressed about that. Um, and I think a lot of times I'll get into it and I'll tap into, like, a deeper feeling or maybe a way that something's worded that I'll try to use in a song later. However, one of the rules of morning pages is kind of like, don't show this to anyone, like, don't this is for you. If you think it's for something else, you're gonna kinda treat it differently. But an example is, like, the other day, I sat down to do it and ended up writing a poem, and then we ended up using parts of that in a song. So, I break the rules sometimes. I'm not sure if that's quite how it's supposed to go, but it works.
Jade, how about you? Are you an everyday person or just when the mood strikes?
I'm a more yeah, more just when the mood strikes. I feel like for me, it's not really an everyday practice. It's more so like feels like pent up emotions when you like really need a good cry. Maybe like you've been dwelling on something for a week and like holding it back, and then you finally let it out, and it feels just like this huge rush of what you've been holding back, which maybe it would be like I would feel less anxious if I did let it out every day, but it also feels like good for me to do it when the inspiration strikes as well.
So when it's not happening and it's been a few days, do you get kind of anxious, like, "I should be doing this. Why isn't this happening?"
Yeah, I think like in recent years it's been different because I think when more emotional heavy things happen in life, like songwriting becomes more of this thing that is scary almost because it's like, oh, I have to like reach this place where I have to think about these dark things that have happened to me. And so sometimes I feel like I can avoid it, almost like you avoid your emotions. And so then when I'm finally in a place where I do feel like I can come and meet those where they're at, then I can like get a really meaningful song out. And yeah.
So do you journal at all?
Yeah, I journal a lot. I am also an artist as well, and so I really like drawing and like writing in my notes throughout the week, and poetry as well. I also really love, and it's a nice way to kind of get your thoughts out on the go if you can't just be at a piano at that time or something. Just come back to it later.
So one more follow-up to that, and that is because I do talk to some songwriters who are visual artists. Some of them get ideas for songs as they are creating something visually. Others distinctly make that separate. In other words, the visual art is a way to kind of turn off the songwriting. So, how does that factor in at all? Is there a connection, I guess, between the visual art and the songwriting for you?
There definitely is. And I do feel like certain artistic moods I'm in is also matches the writing moods that we're in as well. And certain art that I'm inspired by reflects the music I'm inspired by at the time. If it's something darker, I'm usually drawn to make darker art as well versus something brighter and happier. And yeah, also very similar themes through the art and music as well.
So, Jess, let me ask you this, and then Jade, I'll ask you the same question. I just posted an interview yesterday with Lucinda Williams. Uh, you know,
That's amazing.
That's
That's
sick.
awesome.
yeah, it was. It's one of those, to be honest, one of those interviews where I just kind of sat there and was thinking, "Am I really doing this?" Listening to her wisdom, and she said something that really um, what you said reminds me of what she said to me, and that is, she said she needs to be content and have a sense of happiness to write about dark things. She can't write about dark things and sad things when she's in a dark and sad space. The irony is that she has to be happy to write about those things, which I find that interesting. I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong, but for some people, they need to be in that same emotional space. Um, so Jess, we'll start with you. Is that do you need to be in that same emotional space to be able to write about it?
I mean, that's a really interesting take that she has.
Yeah.
For me, when I'm going to my deepest and most emotional kind of dark spaces, I think that my mood is often matching that. Especially when it comes to words. Kind of like Jade said, if I'm really feeling something strongly and really um feeling the need to creatively express it, even if it's just on notes or writing it in my journal, I feel like it's very cathartic. So the emotions are there and you're kind of releasing them. But I will say this is kind of an interesting thought because we were talking about this yesterday a little bit. We were writing a song that was sort of in this kind of like dark but also longing place. It was sort of it felt very coming of age, and I feel like in the moment that we were writing it, we were both observing like we're not totally in this space, and we were kind of talking about, do we need to get into this emotional space to write this song? And we thought about it. We were like, maybe we should wait till nighttime. Maybe we should wait to kind of like ease into this. And then we decided to just kind of dive head first. And I think it turned out really cool. And I think we ended up getting ourselves into that place by writing it itself versus feeling something immediately and entering that emotional space, or versus feeling something, putting it on paper or in a song and releasing it. It was almost like we eased into it through the music and ended up in that space.
So you weren't in that emotional space when you started, but writing about it got you there.
Yeah.
Practically, some people say that, when you're deep in that funk, who wants to write? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just difficult to write when you're in that space.
Yeah, it is. And I think it can sometimes take a level of separation from it or some distance if that's a couple days from an experience. Um, or distance even in like we've talked about how sometimes when you match a fully sad song and sad words with sad music, it's almost too much. Like you need maybe the music needs to have a hopeful edge, even if the words are so sad. The music has this like pretty and peaceful element to it. And like that kind of mix creates this unique feeling.
Jade, what's your take on that? Do you need to be in that space to write about it?
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I think it's also very much so you bring yourself into that space again when you start writing, which is also very cathartic to me. And I think that I do think there needs to be a certain level of healing, maybe from something, and a certain feeling of retrospect to be able to write about it in maybe an eloquent way. Like, I've definitely written songs in that emotional space, and I listen back to it and I'm just like, I can't use this. Like, this is crap, you know? Or like, it just is almost like journaling in a sense where it's like, this is for me and this is something that I have to get out, but it's maybe not something that is always good, you know? I think when you do write songs from that emotional space, sometimes they are just like for you in that way. But I think there were certain things that um, writing about took like a year of feeling it to write about it. And of course, like when you're depressed or when you're really low spot, there's nothing that can really bring you out of that and make you want to write. So that's also another edge of it, which has been hard sometimes.
So if you're writing about something and you're still feeling those raw emotions, and Jade, we'll continue with you and then ask Jess the same thing. Um, do you always go back deliberately and say, you know, I wrote about this from a very raw space, and then I'm going to go back and let it sit for a few before I go back and look at it again. I mean, I know they say to do that with like emails,
Yeah.
before you send that angry
Yes.
email,
Yeah.
wait a day. So does that still apply to songwriting, Jade?
Definitely. Yeah, I think me and Jess do that a lot where we will kind of write a bit that feels very raw and emotional and then come back to it months later and kind of go from there and make it into something maybe more palatable. We did that a lot on our last record. I think we still do that all the time.
Mhm.
And it's nice to kind of have two different perspectives sometimes in a song too, and it gives it a more well-rounded feel.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with kind of the eloquence point of when you have a raw, strong emotion, sometimes the kind of remoteness that you need, just a slight sense of remoteness to craft a perfect lyric, like a perfect line, is entirely gone. Like you're using the most raw, kind of primal words, the most simplistic words. And so a lot of times we will tap into that. Like, here's a poem I wrote when I was like exactly here. Now let's look at this and see, like, can we word this in a way that is more eloquent, maybe is a more unique wording of the same emotion. And I think that that does take often, not always, but it can take a level of just the time and thoughtfulness that might not come in a cathartic moment. So I definitely do that plenty, and I know we do that a lot because when we're bringing things to each other as we write, having, like, that kernel of a really raw emotional space is nice to sort of, like, be the heart of the song.
All right, let's talk logistics. So I'm actually curious, when when you're sitting down to write,
Mhm.
um, are you always writing together, or are you writing separately and then bringing ideas to the other one? How does that process actually work for you?
It's definitely a mix, I think. We write a lot separately, and then when we write together, it's kind of more planned. Like we kind of are like, okay, we're gonna get together this day and write. And I think the writing we do on our own informs that writing a lot. Like we could use different like lyric ideas that we've like been sitting on in our subconscious or different chords that we've like thought were cool, we can bring into it. Or even like just mentioned, we can pull up some poetry or some other songs that we thought were cool and kind of go from there. Um, and then sometimes we'll be writing together and just kind of get into a flow and start kind of from scratch. But it's also like never quite from scratch, you know? I think you're always kind of revolving ideas that and things you've learned throughout your whole life, you know?
Mhm.
So it'd be impossible to really just, I think, create something completely new. But that would also, I think, maybe be our ideal world where we're just inventing something never before heard.
Mhm.
So are you where now practically, where are you doing the writing? Is it always at some one of your houses? Yeah, where are you writing?
I Well, you're actually catching us, like, in a writing week. So we do struggle, like, lately, we used to live together, we used to be in school together, we would, like, our apartments were next to each other, all this stuff. Now, like, we live separate, we're going to visit our families, we're also on tour for, like, half of the year together, we're in the studio the other quarter of the year, and Jade works on the weekends all weekend, and I work during the week all week, so, like, our schedules are opposing a lot of the times, and so this week and last week, we were like, "Okay, we're taking off work and we're gonna meet every single day, pretty much between the hours of like 11 to 6 and just like keep seeing what's happening. Maybe have a day where we both bring our own songs to the table and try to workshop them. We have a bunch of like half-baked ideas that we've done on writing retreats together and things like that. So we're just kind of like combing through it, starting some from scratch like we did yesterday. And right now we're doing that in my house. That's where we are right now. So we're gonna be hitting that after this. And then I think like obviously when we're both personally writing, it'll be like in our own homes. on our own. We both like to go to the music school a lot, the Hugh Hodgson Music School. You might know it. And we actually like wrote a lot of songs from our previous albums on the pianos at the music school because they have these beautiful grand pianos. And as long as you go during the hours when they're not going to give you a parking ticket, you can kind of just walk in there. Like it says on a lot of the rooms, it used to be very anyone walk in, but now on the rooms it says you have to have a practice time to do this, but no one, there's so many empty rooms that we just kind of sneak into one and use the nice pianos.
All right, so many follow-ups. So you're right. You said 11 to 6. Is that typically when I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah, so we're kind of trying something new right now. You're catching us in a moment of truly trying something new this week. When we were in college, we would write till like 2 a.m. and maybe start at 10 p.m. Like it was lots of late night writing. I think we've always leaned kind of nighttime.
Yeah. It's kind of like when everyone else goes to sleep and it just feels like us in the world. We would bake brownies and drink wine and just,
it's our tradition, brownies and wine.
But now just like, I think we're getting a little bit older and going to bed earlier. So
wake up earlier.
So we're just transition.
No, I mean, I asked this question because if you read any interviews with like traditional prose writers, poets, their rituals. I mean, none of them say, "Oh yeah, I write when I feel like it." You know, they have a favorite chair, a favorite room, things they have to have with them. I mean, so that's what I want to get at because I think for me at least, the knowing what the optimal flow state is, is important. Like I need to know what can I do to get me in that space where I'm ready to create. So for example, like I'm definitely a morning person. I always have been. There was an article I read this about a year ago. They said that we're genetically wired to be either morning people or night people. Like you can't change that.
I've heard this, yes. I find that fascinating. And I feel like you can use it as a superpower as a night person or a morning person, as long as you're not trying to change yourself into something that you're not,
Yeah. So Jade, I'll ask you this first, but is there, when you're writing by yourself, is there an ideal room, chair, thing you have to have with you, things like that?
Mhm. Yeah, I think like in my ideal, I'm completely by myself, either at my family's home back in Atlanta or in my house here. But ideally I'd be at a grand piano, I think. And I I like candlelight, I think is really nice, Like I feel like we're both very witchy in a certain way where it's kind of like feels like, setting the mood and turning off the lights, lighting candles. I feel the most inspired then. And of course, I have to have my phone with me in case I have a good idea and then I can like record it before I forget it. But yeah, also some like nature sounds. Like I like to have the door open or be outside. That is also really nice to feel connected to nature. I think some of our best writing sessions have been outside where it just like feels the best, or in the moments where we can do a writing retreat somewhere really beautiful. That feels really nice. But yeah, I feel like with me and Jess too, when we're writing together, it's really important for us that we have like 30 minutes to an hour to kind of just unload and to connect on a friendship basis before we get into the writing as well.
Okay, a couple of follow-ups. Jade, how many voice memos do you have? Are there thousands?
Oh my gosh, probably like thousands and thousands. So many. It's like I don't know. My notes page and my voice memos are probably the things that I would guard with my life.
Agreed.
And if someone was on my phone, they would never check there. But that's, yeah, where all my darkest secrets are. And that's like,
And Apple's got them.
and Apple, Elon,
Right.
I don't know, Meta, whoever owns it these days, they know everything.
So how often do you go back to those for ideas?
You know, my favorite time to go back to my voice memos is actually when I'm on an airplane, I think, because you don't have Wi-Fi and you just are sitting there with nothing to do. So I just go back and listen to them and remember what good ideas. But probably, I don't know, I guess right now because we're in the writing process more often, but probably not enough. But it's definitely cool to reflect on what has been written, and you forget the ideas. I think there was a Beatles quote, I think it was Paul that said this, but if he didn't remember the idea in the morning, he decided it was a bad song. And so sometimes I'm like, well, if I forgot it, maybe it was bad. But then I also think about all the great Beatles songs that were forgotten. And
I know, I want to hear Paul's bad songs.
I know. And I'm grateful for the fact that we have a way to record it so easily.
I have so many voice memos and notes, but you know, yeah, I still have this vision of me sitting down and saying, yes, let me use that idea. I mean, I don't write songs just as a prose writer, but I never go back. And I feel like the older they get, the less relevant they are.
Yes.
Um,
Do you ever feel like I think part of the reason it's so hard to go back, if all three of us have a hard time with that, is that like half of the creative process is just recording the idea. It's like that is half of the journey, and actually consolidating it or picking it is another part of the journey, but you almost feel like it's done when it's in the voice memos or somewhere.
And we've talked about too, like yesterday we were saying how we think the song we would write today would be the best that we would be able to write instead of like months ago, because we've grown more in this version of ourselves.
so Jess, thousands of voice memos too.
Yes, I actually um Jade and I have a bit like I'm trying to be better about this, but not only do I think I have like over 2,000 voice memos, probably like 1,000 notes, but I don't name any of them, which I'm trying to change. It's horrible. It's just a bad habit. But then it just is like voice memo number 1900, 1901. And then it was so close to 2,000 that I was like, well, I wanted to hit 2,000, so I'm going to keep unnaming or not adding a name. But especially when we're working on things together, it's just so practical to name it something. And the most awesome tool, they keep improving voice memos and notes, which are like, I don't know, you gotta have them. I so respect people that write their lyrics in journals, and sometimes I do, but like having them also in the notes is so helpful that it's with you all the time. But you can now search in the notes any keyword and then all your things come up. But same thing in voice memos. You could search a word that you sang, and I guess it picks up you sang the word sparrow, and it'll show you that voice memo, which is so helpful for me who has so few named voice memos. So
Well, I can tell you what other songwriters have told me, because most of them honestly are like you and they have there's no organization at all to them.
Mm.
Um, Although I think the value to that is that if there's no organization, it forces you to go back and look at ones that you probably never would have seen otherwise.
that's
True.
really true.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
But um, some of them use like 1 to 5 stars. You know, this is a really good one, 5 star. Others have emojis.
I
Oh
do
yeah,
I do the emoji thing.
Emoji?
Yeah, I'll put a heart next to it or any emoji if
If you
I
think
like
it's
it.
good?
Yeah,
That's awesome. That's smart
uh,
because it like jumps out at you. You see it.
definitely.
exactly. All right, Jess, let me ask you this: when it comes to lyrics, when you're writing song lyrics,
Mhm.
are you a are you ever a pen and paper person or strictly a phone/computer person?
So I really like to write. Like I said, I'll do morning pages on pen and paper. So like a lot of the ideas are first coming out on pen and paper. The other day we were writing a song and my journal was next to me. So pen and paper it was, which felt really nice to do. But then I just end up copying it into my phone immediately afterwards to still have it. So I think occasionally pen and paper. More often, I'm like pulling things, small pieces that I had written on pen and paper while journaling or something like that. But yeah, like by myself and with Jade, it's usually the Notes app. And I think that's like if I pull out the guitar, the phone is next to me. If if I'm on the piano, the phone is next to me because that's just kind of like the routine of it. Whereas if it comes out in a random way, that might be on pen and paper.
And I'm going to get very specific with this question, Jess. When you're writing on guitar,
Mhm.
there are three things that I hear. Some songwriters sit, others stand, others walk. Have you ever thought about yeah, have you ever thought about when you've got that guitar and you're writing? Have you ever thought about what you're doing with that guitar?
I am never standing or walking, always sitting. Like, I don't think, I'm not sure if there's ever, maybe if like we're writing a song as a band at band practice, I'd be stuck.
That's true.
But even still, it's like, I could be crisscross applesauce on the ground. I could be in a chair. I could be on a couch, but I'm not usually standing or walking.
And I'm going to make a very broad generalization. The people who walk around, and I have no idea why this is, and again, very broad, are for whatever reason, mostly the country artists I've interviewed.
Really?
I have no idea why. And they say something about the beat of walking around. Um, Somehow, the footsteps.
Now I want to try.
You know, I have never thought to do that, but I love that idea. I think like I could see how you would write different music with standing and walking.
Yeah.
Um,
It's an automatic beat.
yeah.
And not only that, but I feel like you're moving. Like
Yeah.
I'm big on movement anyway. And so I feel like moving around, you're seeing things and it just may give you a different perspective than if you were just sitting stationary.
Hmm.
We should try that this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
Like, and I feel like almost rhythmically, you could come up with more creative rhythms standing
Mhm.
than just sitting down.
Just one more thing since you brought this up,
Yeah.
and because you mentioned the floor, and I do talk to a lot of songwriters who feel a deep connection to they have to be sitting on the floor. We don't know why, that we've never established that, whether it's some deep connection to the earth, but why the floor rather than a chair?
I find myself on the floor a lot and I have no idea why. I've never thought about it. A lot of the times it's while me and Jade are writing together. So like she'll be on the couch and I'll kind of want to be closer to her than like two couches facing each other because that feels too far away to write a song almost. So I'll like crisscross it on the floor closer. But I've
Gotcha.
never considered that, and I didn't. It's, like, so cool that you've interviewed all these people and noticed these different patterns and themes. That's fascinating to me. I do think
Um,
that there's that element of connecting back to your younger creative self that's really important, um, whether that's emotionally or by us making brownies and wine.
True.
All that.
Well, no, and it's funny because I just had this conversation when I talked to Lucinda Williams, and she said that she has to be drinking coffee, but it doesn't matter if it's caffeinated because it's a sense of nostalgia. She said that back when she was growing up, she's like, we'd be sitting around as a family and it's 10 o'clock at night and people will just drink coffee. And it's not the caffeine, it was just because it was a social thing. And she says to this day, she still has to drink coffee when she writes because it gives her that sense of nostalgia.
I
I
love
love
that.
that too. Yeah, I feel like it's almost, we've talked about how different things influence the type of song you make. And I feel like writing on the floor does add a different element to writing, just like writing on an electric versus an acoustic guitar changes the song completely.
Mhm.
And then writing on a piano or a synth also changes the song entirely. And it's it's very interesting. Drinking wine versus drinking tea changes the song every
Well,
single.
obviously, I don't think that's
Um, but me and Jess definitely, like, the first time I think we ever wrote together, we made tea, so that's something that we still do. We did it yesterday. It feels right.
We used to write a lot on your bed too. We
Yeah,
haven't
I
done
love.
that in a while.
Yeah, mhm.
Isn't that fascinating, though? I mean, the fact that you probably never thought about that, but you still might drink tea, but you're never thinking, "Oh, let's drink tea because we started when drinking tea,"
I
right?
know, I've never thought about that.
Right, so Jade, as a visual art as an artist then, I'm assuming you must write lyrics with a pen and paper, right?
It depends as well. Think I would prefer writing with a pen and paper sometimes. However, I've lost the sheets of paper here and there, and I think that that can sometimes feel scary to like lose a journal or lose a pen and paper that you were kind of holding as this sacred thing. And I think when Jess and I are also writing together, it's really easy to do shared notes, but it's a mix for sure. I do both as well as Jess. So, but
Do you
I will say that I do like if I am writing on pen and paper, I draw along with it as well.
Mm.
Ooh, okay, you can't just say that and let me and skate by. What are you drawing? Is it related to the songs or is it completely separate?
It is related. It's usually something visual along with it, or something scribbly, or it's always something related to the song though that I'm writing. I feel like it's kind of like setting a scene as well, which honestly I should do more of now that I'm talking about it.
You're giving us
And
a
those
lot of
are
good ideas.
say that again?
I said you're giving us a lot of good ideas.
That
And
was
I know.
That was also
Th
something I would do in the recording process would be to draw while like we're recording, and then sometimes those would turn into merch designs or posters and different things.
So is the drawing deliberate or is it almost like an unconscious kind of doodling?
It's both. I think it's a lot of times in the studio there's a lot of downtime, and so it's kind of like a thing to ease some anxiety. Sometimes it just feels good to feel like you're also attributing to something creative, even if you're not the one on the mic at the moment or something. And so it, yeah.
And you also mentioned writing outside, and Athens has so many great open spaces. Yeah, so are there certain places you go in Athens? Is it just outside, like outside the house, or are there certain places that you go?
we
It's
have some
funny.
favorites.
It's funny because like this is just really making me think about all of our past writing experiences, but like my favorite place to write used to be on the top of parking decks. And I would always take a guitar up to the top of my apartment parking deck, and I just wanted to like be as close as I could to the sky, it felt. And those records were so like spacey. they were like they were like so like moon, stars, space, and just like expansive, and I wonder if that's why.
Okay, so I can understand walking outside your house and saying, "Oh, it's a nice day." But who says to themselves, or how did this happen where you say, "I'm gonna go to the top of a parking deck and write," because that's hardly a space of beauty. So how did that even happen?
I don't know. I think like when you are living in a tiny apartment, that's like the closest space to being pretty in a city. So
There were some really pretty views there
there,
also
you could see all
where
of
they built stuff.
you could see all of Athens. You could see the sunset. You could see planes going by.
Yeah. And we would go skate up there too.
Yeah.
A couple other of our favorite spots were Lake Herrick, Dock.
Totally.
Also, I took an acoustic guitar to the cemetery a couple times.
Yeah, me too.
That feels like it's like channeling something from a lot of other lives, you know?
Totally.
It just feels like the world is
it's
speaking to you,
So
and
private.
yeah, the universe is you're closer to another element of the universe that way. And a lot of parks like botanical gardens. We wrote a couple.
Yeah.
Uh Lake Herrick Botanical Gardens. Did
Um,
a couple other we were very in college, we would go out to fields a lot too for like photo shoots, but also for writing
mhm.
just because of where we live, you know. If you drive out 15 minutes, there's a ton of farmland and fields, and no one seems to really care if you go near there in there.
And a couple other questions, and Jess will ask you this first. The one quote I always give songwriters is the writer Agatha Christie said, "The best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes." So the idea there is that ideas come to us when our brains are engaged in monotonous activities. The eureka moments happen when we're bored. They happen when we are, and I've heard songwriters say when they are folding laundry, gardening, doing the dishes, like I said, mowing the lawn, vacuuming, anything that requires repetitive motion and no conscious thought.
Yeah.
This is why we get our best ideas in the shower. So I'd love to know how often that happens to you. Jess, I'll start with you.
That happens a lot with me, and I think in the last year, I've sort of been trying to embrace that more and purposefully put myself in those situations more, and I think the biggest one for me is walking. But previously, if I walked, I was always either with someone or had something in my ears. Usually, like, it could be music, could be an audiobook, could be a podcast, but something, like, extremely distracting to where you're not really connected with your own inner thoughts as much. You're listening to somebody else's, like someone might be if they're listening to us right now. But going on a walk with nothing that you're listening to is my favorite way to just kind of like process and think of ideas. But also, even if I don't find ideas coming to me on the walk, I at least come back with just kind of like a sense of peace. And weirdly, I have a lot of ideas during yoga, which I think is not not really supposed to happen because the teachers are always like, "What are you thinking about? You're thinking about something else. Come back in here." But I do find myself having a lot of creative ideas during yoga. And yeah, I don't know. And then sort of I am in this kind of inner battle there because I will be having ideas and my mind will start wandering all the way somewhere else, and then I'll be trying to bring it back. But at the same time, I sort of feel like it's a good thing to wander there. So that is more of like a battle, I think. But still some good ideas come out of it.
Jade, how about you?
I agree with yoga. I think that I also get a lot of great ideas, whether it's painting wise or music wise in yoga, especially during the end part where you just lay on the ground. What's that called again?
Shavasana.
Shavasana, yeah. It's almost like you just exercise the whole class and then you like close your eyes and it's just like visual landscapes just appear. And I think also showering is definitely one. um, I think some of my best ideas have come when I'm in the shower. There's also times when me and Jess will be writing and we'll be stuck on an idea, and then I'll be like, you know what? I have to go to the bathroom, and then come back and be like, got it. This is it. This is the idea that we were looking for. Even just like whenever we take like 1 second away from it, the idea will come. Um, so I totally think that's a cool thing to do though, to kind of do something monotonous, and if you just let your brain kind of meditate on it without thinking too hard, that's when the better ideas will come.
All right, let's end with this. So I do find that songwriters are voracious readers. To me, there's a very clear through line. You can't be a good writer unless you read. I don't care what you write. You have to be you have to read. So Jess, we'll start with you. Um, who do you like to read? Are you an author person? Are you a genre person?
That's a great question. I'm a really passionate reader. And have been since I was a kid. I have sort of gone through a couple phases with it. I think like I have recently been rediscovering my love of classics. I remember being in 8th grade and reading Catcher in the Rye for the first time and just being obsessed with it. And I then went on my own like classics bender of just reading everything I could find. So I just read David Copperfield, Charles Dickens, and I really loved it. And now I'm reading Bleak House. I'm kind of on a Charles Dickens wave right now. But I sort of kind of read 3 or 4 different genres. I'm I would pick up anything though. But I love to read like sci-fi too and fantasy that's like in a whole other world. I'll sometimes listen to the sort of like Pema Chodron, self-help, Cal Newport, that kind of energy. I've been reading both of them, and I like to listen to those more than read. And then, yeah, right now I've been really into classics. I just read Wise Blood, which Jade lent to me, which I loved. Flannery O'Connor.
Jess, how are you working through those classics? Is it a Dickens kick, or is it like, do you look at the list of 100 best novels and say, I need to read this one next?
I actually found David Copperfield on my bookshelf. Like, I just, between me and my two other roommates, we have a pretty large book collection, and it just kind of stuck out at me when I was looking for something to bring on tour. And yeah, I would say I'm kind of currently, when it comes to books, I don't like looking up recommendations on the internet or TikTok. I'm really inspired by a book coming to me in a magical way. So I recently read a book I found in one of those free book libraries. Jade lent me that Flannery O'Connor book, or a friend will say something in passing and I'll write it in my notes, or I like the cover and it looks intriguing at a local bookstore. Um, but yeah, I don't really have a method, I guess, for working through it, except that I'm kind of waiting for the universe to bring me the next one. As far as Bleak House goes, which is the next Dickens book I'm reading, my boyfriend got it for me for Christmas because he knew how much I loved David Copperfield. So, yeah.
I do not hear Dickens mentioned very often among songwriters, to be honest. There are certain ones that, as you can imagine, um, the ones who really strive for economy of language, Cormac McCarthy,
Mhm.
Kurt Vonnegut, those,
Lots of Vonnegut.
yeah, it makes sense,
Yeah.
that if you're writing like that. So, Jade, how about you?
Yeah, I would say that my favorite book I read this year was Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor, and that was kind of like um I was telling a friend about how I was kind of really inspired by Southern Gothic visually and writing, and it was like my last day of working at this job at Trader Joe's, and he just like left it in my locker, and so I grabbed it as I walked out the door and finally read it this year, and it just like matched how I was feeling so deeply, and it is very cool to, I think, read female authors too, um, and to read just older books as well, like the classics. And I don't know. I also agree that I really enjoy reading meditation books. Like another one of my favorite books is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which is about being present and just kind of like getting out of your own way and out of your own mind, and finding out how to like escape this reminiscing on the past and ruminating on the future, and just like be in the moment and see how beautiful life is. And um also fantasy is really great as well. I'm reading Howl's Moving Castle right now. I feel like you kind of have to have one for fun, one for self growth, and then one for like, growing your mind too. And so I think they're all very helpful in those ways.
All right, last follow up. Jade, you're reading a book, you don't like it. Do you force yourself to finish it, or can you set it aside and say, I'm done with this?
I can definitely set it aside. I do not force myself to read if I don't like it. But I also have the opposite problem where if I really like a book, I will not finish it.
She's weird about this. And a TV show.
Yeah.
And a movie.
Wait, what?
I if I really like a book, I don't want it to end, and so I will, like, read it as slowly as possible, or specifically, like, not read the last page so that it's not over yet. I did this with The Wise Blood. I, like, sat in the last chapter for, like, 5 months, and then same with The Power of Now. I still have, like, a couple chapters left, and I'm like, I can't bring myself to read them. I don't know what's wrong with me, but
No, it's the anticipation. That makes sense, right? You want to
Yeah,
feel like there's something to look forward to.
exactly.
All
Um,
right, Jess, how about you? Can you finish something, or do you have to finish it, I should say?
I kind of have to finish it. I don't know. It's pretty rare that I don't finish it. I think it's partly because I keep a list in my phone every year of books that I did finish, so it kind of is like, I wanna see this one through because then I read it, like, I have read this book, and also, I haven't run into that many that I truly dislike, like, honestly, I feel like sometimes the harder ones to finish, like, say it's just kind of poor, like a poorly written fantasy book, for example. I can get into the plot enough that I'm like, I need to finish this. Same thing with a bad TV show. I'm like, oh, I need to finish this. It's the ones that are like written really well, and I kind of need to digest the chapters, I think, that are the hardest. Like, currently, the hardest one for me to finish has been Braiding Sweetgrass. Like, I've been reading that book for maybe a couple months, and that's kind of rare for me. I'll go pretty fast, but I'll just read a chapter, like, every month, and it's just kind of like this idea of kinda sitting on it because every time I read it, I feel more connected and appreciative of nature, and I like reading it in the different seasons because she talks about all these different seasons of the year, but, yeah, if a book's bad, I guess my answer is I will finish it faster to get through it.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.